Berea. Would that signify that he thinks that the competition is a little closer than it once was and he got to get locked in and ready to go?
I think he looks at this as probably the last chance of his.
This is the story of a 9-year NFL veteran, a man who was once an MVP candidate, who once threw for 4,000 yards in a single season with the Houston Texans, now scrambling, sweating, and calling in favors just to stay relevant in a quarterback competition against a guy who was drafted in the 5th round. Shedeur Sanders, the asset, the future, the one reason the Cleveland Browns have any legitimate buzz this offseason. And by the time you get to the 10-minute mark of this video, you are going to understand exactly who is desperate, who is performing, and why the national media has completely missed the most important dynamic happening in Berea right now. Let me be completely clear from the jump. We are not here to crown Shedeur Sanders the next Patrick Mahomes. Nobody is saying that. What we are saying, what the evidence is screaming, is that a second-year quarterback on a 5th-round rookie contract has a 9-year veteran so rattled that he is pulling people out of retirement just to look competitive. And that right there tells you everything you need to know about the real power dynamic in Cleveland.
Let's hear it, Big Florio.
Watson choosing to be there. The slow time, the downtime. There's all sorts of ways that you will know as a coaching staff whether or not the contenders to be the starting quarterback.
Let us set the table properly, because context is everything, and national media does not want to give you context. They want to give you a hot take and move on. Here is what actually happened. Deshaun Watson, the man sitting on $230 million in guaranteed money, and by $230 million I mean the single most financially catastrophic contract in the history of the Cleveland Browns franchise, has played 32% of that contract. 32%. That is the payoff number I need every single person watching this to lock into their brain right now, because we are going to come back to it. 32% of a $230 million guaranteed deal, and the Browns have essentially nothing to show for it. One good half of football, that is the ledger, that is the return on investment. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders, the asset, the commodity, the one player on this roster who has the entire football world paying attention, spent his offseason going to Colorado to train at altitude, no air up there. Hard conditions. Then he came back and worked in the Texas heat. He was in the building in Berea before they even had a head coach, before they knew who was going to be running this offense, before there was a system to learn. Shedeur Sanders was in there putting in work. First man out there. The building was practically empty, and he was already grinding. And what did Deshaun Watson do? He showed up after Shedeur started making noise. He pulled Harold Fannin, everybody's favorite tight end, a man who had been dealing with an injury and had been completely absent the entire spring. He pulled Harold Fannin out of retirement-adjacent rest just to have a body to throw to in his extra workouts. Which, and by interesting I mean absolutely revealing, is the move of a man who is not competing from a position of strength. That is the move of a man who is reacting. Deshaun Watson is not driving this competition. He is responding to it. There is a massive difference. If you are finding this breakdown valuable, please subscribe to Hot News right now and hit the bell so you never miss a video like this one. Now I want you to sit with this for a second, because this is where the sarcasm has to give way to something more serious. Deshaun Watson has $230 million guaranteed. He has 9 years of NFL experience. He was at one point genuinely one of the most exciting quarterbacks in the entire league. And right now, in this moment, he is the one who is panicking. Not Shedeur, Deshaun.
The last chance of his career. I get it. Like, yeah, it's a close competition with Shedeur, so you want. I just think that he's looking at this as like this is his last chance.
This guy's made all this money. He's done nothing for the Browns outside of played maybe one good half of football.
Think about what that actually looks like from the outside, because the optics here are genuinely stunning. It is like watching the incumbent CEO of a company, the guy who has been there for 9 years, who has the golden parachute, who has the corner office, who has the guaranteed salary no matter what. It is like watching that guy suddenly start staying late at the office and bringing coffee to the board members because he just found out the intern they hired on a provisional contract is outperforming him in every single metric. And instead of just being better at his job, he starts making phone calls, pulling in old colleagues, setting up meetings, doing everything except the one thing that would actually fix the problem, which is performing at the level his compensation demands. That is Deshaun Watson right now. And the intern is Shedeur Sanders, a 5th-round pick on an affordable rookie contract who has already won football games, who has already shown glimpses that made the entire Browns organization, Andrew Berry, Todd Monken, the players on the field, who has already shown enough that every single person in that building has, at one point or another, acknowledged that this kid got the raw end of the deal last year. The players said it, the local media said it, even voices that are not traditionally in Shedeur's corner said it. And that is not hyperbole, that is not me hyping this up, that is simply what the people inside that building have communicated, both on record and off. Now let us talk about what the national media has been doing, because this is where it gets genuinely maddening, and by maddening I mean almost comedically predictable.
We're focused enough on the fact that, hey, Deshaun is the one that's in desperation. It's not Shedeur needs to. No, Deshaun's the vet. Deshaun's been there. Deshaun's played MVP football. This is Deshaun's 18th situation. He's only played 32% of this contract. Now look, Mike Florio is not wrong about the general principle. Showing up matters. Putting in the work in the building matters. The coaching staff notices who is there and who is not. That is a basic, obvious, true observation about how NFL quarterback competitions work. But here is the problem. Here is why that clip, taken at face value, is actually misleading in the context of this specific competition. Florio is making that point as if we are starting from zero, as if we do not already know what Shedeur Sanders has been doing since the moment last season ended, as if the history between Shedeur and head coach Todd Monken is a blank slate that Watson can now write on by simply showing up to voluntary workouts. That is not the reality. The reality is that Shedeur Sanders was in the building when there was no head coach, when the Browns organization was in complete transition, when nobody knew who was going to be calling plays or installing an offense or even running the facility day to day, Shedeur Sanders was already there, already working, already building relationships with the receivers, with the tight ends, with the support staff. He did not wait for the competition to heat up. He did not wait for Deshaun Watson to get nervous. He was there from day one of the offseason because that is who he is. The national media's version of this story is that Watson showed up and suddenly the competition got real. The actual version of this story is that the competition has been real for months. Shedeur has been winning it quietly, and Watson showing up is not a power move, it is a panic move. There is a fundamental difference between arriving first and arriving late with Harold Fannin in tow. I want every single person watching this to understand the business framing here, because that is what actually matters when we strip away the drama. Deshaun Watson has only activated 32% of a $230 million guaranteed contract. 32%. The Browns are going to be paying this man whether he plays or not. That money is gone. It is already spent. The only question is whether they get anything of value in return. And the answer, so far, is one good half of football. That is what the Cleveland Browns have received in exchange for the most guaranteed money ever handed to a quarterback in the history of the franchise. One good half. Hey, man. Shedeur has a 9-year vet. A man who supposedly, if you ask Mary Kay Cabot, in 3 practices.
This is the cornered animal dynamic, and I want to break it down properly because it is the core of everything happening in Berea right now. Deshaun Watson is not competing from confidence, he is competing from desperation. And there is a crucial distinction between those two things because desperation produces a very specific set of behaviors. It produces the kind of frantic activity that looks like effort but is actually anxiety, pulling a recovering tight end into extra sessions, suddenly showing up to a facility you had been largely absent from, making sure the cameras see you working. These are not the moves of a man who believes he has already won the job. These are the moves of a man who knows, who genuinely knows in his bones, that the ground has shifted beneath him. And here is the part that nobody in the national media wants to say out loud, so I will say it for them. If Deshaun Watson cannot beat out Shedeur Sanders, a second-year player on a 5th-round contract who has never been handed anything, then what exactly is the argument for Watson getting another NFL opportunity anywhere? Think about that. Who signs this man? Which franchise looks at the tape, looks at the contract history, looks at the injury history, the shoulders, the surgeries, everything that has exploded on that field, and says, yes, we want that? If he cannot win a competition against Shedeur Sanders in Cleveland, the answer to that question is nobody. The league retires him whether he wants to retire or not. That is the pressure Watson is operating under, and that is why calling him a cornered animal is not cruel, it is accurate. Now let us talk about the Shedeur side of this, because the naysayers exist and they are loud and they deserve a direct response. The argument against Shedeur is always some version of the same thing. He is overhyped. He is only relevant because of his father Deion Sanders, Coach Prime. His college numbers do not translate. He is a 5th-round pick for a reason. And look, I understand why that argument exists. I understand the skepticism. But let me give you the counter-argument, and it is a business argument, not a feelings argument. Shedeur Sanders on a 5th-round rookie contract is one of the most affordable assets in professional football right now. He has already won games at the NFL level. He has already shown enough growth through the offseason program, And the organization has confirmed this. Todd Monken has said positive things. Andrew Berry has said positive things that the Browns have zero incentive to move off him. What are they trading him for? What is the return? There is no market that makes sense. And the people inside the building, the ones who watch him every single day, they are not looking at Shedeur Sanders and seeing a bust. They are looking at him and seeing a real quarterback competition with a 9-year veteran who is supposed to be the unquestioned starter. That is the story, not Watson's comeback narrative, not the national media's lazy veteran shows up and takes control framing. The real story is that Shedeur Sanders, the asset, the economic engine of this franchise's future, has a $230 million man sweating in the summer heat just to keep pace.
Berea. Would that signify that he thinks that the competition is a little closer than it once was and he got to get locked in and ready to go?
I think he looks at this as probably the last chance of his.
Only 32%. Let that land. Deshaun Watson has only activated 32% of the most guaranteed money in Browns history, and he has done nothing with it. He has given this franchise one good half of football, a collection of injuries, and a locker room that has had to navigate his presence with extraordinary care, and now he wants us to celebrate the fact that he showed up to voluntary workouts. Now he wants credit for being in the building. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders was in that building when there was nothing to show up for. No coach, no system, no competition officially underway. Just a kid who was raised by Coach Prime, who knows what it means to outwork the room, who went to altitude training in Colorado because he wanted to be harder than the moment required him to be. While Deshaun Watson was somewhere else, and by somewhere else I mean not in Berea, Shedeur Sanders was quietly becoming the de facto face of this franchise's future. And here is the part that should genuinely concern the national media narrative: the trade rumors. Remember those? The ones that circulated a couple weeks ago suggesting the Browns might move Shedeur. Nobody could confirm them, nobody could source them. They evaporated almost immediately. And you know why? Because the people actually inside that building, Andrew Berry, Todd Monken, the players, they are not trying to get rid of Shedeur Sanders. They like him. They see what he is becoming. The trade rumors were noise generated by people who do not have access to what is actually happening in that facility. Let me give you a picture of what this competition actually looks like in real terms, because the analogy matters here. Imagine you have a restaurant. It is a well-known restaurant, but it has been struggling. The head chef, the one you paid an astronomical sum to bring in, has been sick, inconsistent, and has only delivered one genuinely great meal in the time they have been there. Meanwhile, the sous chef they brought in almost as an afterthought, a young kid who costs a fraction of the salary, has been in the kitchen every single morning before anyone else arrives. He has been studying the menu, building relationships with the suppliers, learning the equipment, and now the head chef, sensing that the owner is starting to pay attention to the sous chef, suddenly starts coming in early too, suddenly starts cooking extra dishes after hours, suddenly starts making phone calls to bring in premium ingredients they had not bothered to source before. Who is running the kitchen? Who actually cares about the food? And more importantly, who would you bet on to still be cooking there in 3 years? That is Berea right now. That is this quarterback competition. And the national media is out here writing breathless pieces about the head chef showing up to work as if that is the story, while completely ignoring the fact that the sous chef has been there the whole time. I want you to sit with the business reality for one more moment before we get to the verdict, because this is where the numbers become genuinely damning for the national media narrative. Deshaun Watson has only activated 32% of his guaranteed money. He has played in a fraction of the games his contract demands. His body has broken down repeatedly, shoulders, everything, on that football field. The Browns are already paying the price for a bet that has not paid off. The only question left is whether they compound that mistake by forcing Watson into a starting role he has not earned, or whether they let the actual competition play out and give Shedeur Sanders the opportunity his offseason work has earned him. When you frame it that way, as a business decision rather than a feelings decision, the answer is obvious. And what is fascinating, and by fascinating I mean genuinely infuriating to watch, is that certain national media voices are still trying to spin Watson's sudden urgency as the dominant story, while the player who has been doing everything right since January is treated as the underdog who needs to prove himself to a 9-year veteran who has proven almost nothing in Cleveland.
Let's hear it, Big Florio.
Watson choosing to be there. The slow time, the downtime. There's all sorts of ways that you will know as a coaching staff whether or not the contenders to be the starting quarterback.
Here is the verdict. Here is where we land after looking at all of this honestly. Deshaun Watson is a cornered animal. That is not an insult. That is an assessment. He knows it. The people around him know it. The fact that he is suddenly in the building, suddenly working with Harold Fannin, suddenly making his presence felt, all of that is confirmation that Shedeur Sanders has gotten into his head. You do not change your behavior in the middle of an offseason unless something has forced you to change it. And what forced Deshaun Watson to change it is a second-year quarterback on a fifth-round contract who has been outworking him since January. Here is what I predict. When training camp opens and pads go on and this competition moves from shorts and shorts workouts to actual football, the gap between these two quarterbacks is going to be apparent to everyone in that building. Not because Shedeur is some transcendent generational talent, nobody is saying that, but because he has done the preparation, he has built the relationships, he has put in the altitude training and the heat training and the facility time, and he is going to be ready in a way that a man who showed up late to his own competition simply will not be. And here is the final number I want to leave you with, because we have been carrying it through this entire video, and it deserves one last look: 32%. Deshaun Watson has only played 32% of a $230 million guaranteed contract. He has given the Browns one good half of meaningful football. If he cannot beat out Shedeur Sanders, a player the entire organization has privately and publicly acknowledged got the raw end of the deal last year, then that contract becomes the single most expensive cautionary tale in NFL history. And the Browns will have no choice but to hand the keys to the asset, to the economic engine of their future, to the kid who was in the building when nobody else was. Shedeur Sanders is not going anywhere. He is going to be in this league through his entire rookie contract at minimum. He has already shown enough that teams will want him, and the naysayers who spent the offseason telling you he was not good enough to compete with a 9-year veteran, they are going to have to reckon with the fact that the 9-year veteran is the one who blinked first. This is not a feel-good story about a famous father's son getting a participation trophy. This is a business story about a franchise that spent $230 million on a quarterback who has activated 32% of that investment, and a second-year player who has done everything in his power to make that investment look even worse by comparison. The pressure is not on Shedeur Sanders. The pressure has never been on Shedeur Sanders. The pressure is entirely, completely, and suffocatingly on Deshaun Watson, and everybody watching this knows it, including Deshaun Watson.
The last chance of his career. I get it. Like, yeah, it's a close competition with Shedeur, so you want... I just think that he's looking at this as like, this is his last chance.
This guy's made all this money. He's done nothing for the Browns outside of played maybe one good half of football.
Before we close this out, I need you to do something. Drop your honest take in the comments right now. Forced choice, yes or no? Is the national media deliberately ignoring Shedeur Sanders' offseason work to protect the Deshaun Watson comeback narrative? Yes or no? Drop it below. I read every single comment and I want to know where you stand because this conversation is not over and your take matters. If you are not subscribed to Hot News yet, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on all notifications, bell icon, all notifications, so you do not miss the next breakdown when training camp opens and this competition gets even louder. And click the video on your screen right now. We have got another one ready for you that connects directly to everything we just talked about, and you do not want to be behind on this story. This is Hot News. We will see you in the next one.
We're focused enough on the fact that, hey, Deshaun is the one that's in desperation. It's not Shedeur needs to. No, Deshaun's the vet. Deshaun's been there. Deshaun's played MVP football. This is Deshaun's 18th situation. He's only played 32% of this contract. Hey, man. Shedeur has a 9-year vet. A man who supposedly, if you ask Mary Kay Cabot, in 3 practices,